You know what? I have to say something, Chuck. I feel that spring may be around the corner.
Hmm.
I feel like it may be coming. I know, down in the Keys, it's like, 70 degrees every day and beautiful, and, there's nothing going on. And you show these beautiful pictures of sunsets and moon skies while we're struggling in the ice and cold up here. I hear you. Don't get me wrong in there.
So let me guess, you did not see your shadow today.
No, I didn't. I was out. I walked the dogs. I had to take the dogs for a long walk today because my wife was doing a board presentation. And so, yeah.
Is
All
it
right.
see the
So
shadow or not see the shadow? I don't know, but that
I
was
don't know.
no, no good.
I've always been confused. I'm still confused about it. I do know that how can one groundhog predict it for the whole country? Doesn't make sense to me.
He
Um,
does.
but anyway, right? We're not here for that.
No.
We're here to test your knowledge, right? This is the Chuck is on the spot episode. We're gonna do Q&A. All right. So Chuck, are you ready? Let me
I'm
do the cold
ready.
open tease just in case we want to, Sam wants to use that. Hey, do you guys shout out to Sam? She's a great producer. She really helps us a lot. Everyone shout out, send emails, send notes, text her, let her know that she's doing a fantastic job because she is. So, Sam, here is our cold opener. You can use it or you can just leave it in the middle of the episode where it is now. Here's a real HR question. Can you fire a high performing, long tenured leader who happens to be older when a food safety issue blows up without it turning into an age related case, age discrimination case? Chipotle just got a big win in federal court, and the reason why is an HR lesson. All right, Mr. Samikian, certified senior HR professional. Here is the question. Can an employee still sue me for age discrimination even when I have a legitimate reason to terminate them?
Hmm.
All right, that's the question, Chuck. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I think that's a question every manager probably secretly worries about. Can an employee still sue me for age discrimination even when I have a legitimate reason to terminate them? And the answer is yes, 100% yes. I want
I
to
guess I
say
should
this
be laughing.
clearly I want to say it clearly for anyone that's listening. You are not lawsuit proof. You can do everything right and still get sued. However, you can be defensible. And here's the mic drop. And in fact, this is why we built and the tool and wrote this book, The Ultimate Guide to HR Checklist Edition, because most companies don't lose in court because they're evil. Oh, the evil company, we're going to get them. They're going to lose. They lose because they're inconsistent or they can't prove what they did. And if you want a simple place, a simple tool to start, we wrote something called the Document Reminder Checklist in our book. And if you're following along, if you have your ultimate guide to checklists and you're a super fan of the HR Stories podcast, you want to go to in the book pages 43 to 45 and in the PDF pages 44 to 46. But let me give you a real example outside of what I just went over and why I say it's 100% yes. You see, there was a case involving a leader, is a field leader at Chipotle. You go to Chipotle, John?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I love Chipotle. I love, give me the extra guac. I wish they didn't charge, but they give me the extra guac. I love the rice and just great stuff. I get the bowls, right? And anyways, this guy was hired Chipotle, they're like Dollar General. They're the gift that keep on giving. I mean, we've run so many stories about Chipotle. people being locked in freezers because they didn't give in to sexual demands and all kind of crazy stuff. But in this case, this person was hired in 2019 at the age of 54, and he was overseeing a half dozen restaurants in New Mexico. In February of 2022, a service request comes in from one of the restaurants reporting a bad roach infestation throughout the entire restaurant. And that's not a minor issue. Those of us that work in the restaurant industry and the hospitality industry, that is high risk. That is a food safety issue. So his director gets involved. They're working with Orkin, and while that's happening, his boss, the director of the district, starts visiting multiple restaurants in this field leader's patch, which is basically, and he's shocked. He is shocked by the conditions and the presence of cockroaches. So basically what we have is we have one restaurant that complained, it bubbled up, but there's a bunch of other restaurants where it's just as bad, if not worse. So 4 of these restaurants get audited. They all fail to meet established cleanliness standards. Okay, not just roach standards, bug standards, but just overall cleanliness. So by March, this is February of 2022. By March 2022, Chipotle terminates this field leader for food safety standards. So what does he do, John?
Sues, and claims age discrimination.
You got it.
Yeah, you got it. What people need to hear, right? Because there's the wait, what moment. Like you have cockroaches, you failed audits, you're documenting the concerns, and the person can still sue you for age discrimination, Chuck?
Yep, exactly. Because the lawsuit isn't just, did something go wrong? Okay. It becomes, was that the real reason? Or was it a cover? Like, is that the real reason? Or was it a cover for something else?
Well, right. I mean, and let's be honest, in a lot of cases, the company goes back, oh, we didn't fire them because they were this race or this gender or this thing. We fired them because of this. And the EEOC comes in and goes, that doesn't seem right.
Yeah, the word you're going to hear is, in these cases, called pretext. Yeah, meaning your reason is fake, and the real reason is discrimination.
Right.
And so this manager, district leader, he tried to argue that Chipotle's stated reason, food safety, was pretext, was fake. And he pointed to things like he was given a final warning, paperwork at the time of the termination, rather than, I don't know what that had to do with it, but maybe it was a final warning, not a termination. He claimed younger leaders weren't terminated for similar issues. He pointed out older worker was terminated. He pointed out another older worker was terminated and said he had a strong performance history. So, I will tell you, though, if you're 54 years old, you've been in the industry for at least 30 years or so, I would think, maybe at least long enough to be able to know health standards.
Yeah, I mean, it's the one thing that everyone in the food industry has to pass before they get a job.
Yeah. And so he gives all these reasons, and the 10th Circuit Court rejects those arguments. They agree with the company. The court essentially said, sir, you did not show enough evidence that age was the real reason, as opposed to the pest and cleanliness failures. So there is a little bit of in these cases, there is burden on the company to prove, right? But there's also burden on the employee. And if the employee makes claims that just cannot be substantiated, and if the company can show, hey, this is how we've handled it in the past, or we have documentation, the ex-employee may lose.
Yeah, and so, I mean, that's the aha moment, right? That's the aha. It's not about whether you had a reason. It's about whether you can prove your reason was the real one. And that goes in the documentation, right? Documentation. And we say this all the time in our workshops. If there's no documentation, it never happened. And in his mind, right, he probably thought, I'm older, I got fired, so it must be age. But the company then, I love that, had receipts, right? They had dates, audits, severity, a clear line from problem to decision. This is what happened, right? And this was a major issue that was in there.
Yeah. So the point of today's story is being right doesn't make you lawsuit proof, but it does give you a fighting chance. And Chipotle didn't win because they had the perfect words in a termination letter. They won because they could show a credible timeline and credible business reason tied to a high risk standard, food safety and sanitation.
And I would add, they were able to show that, right? It's not enough to be like, this person did this terrible thing, they didn't do it, and so we fired them. They had, like, we did an audit of all the stores. All the stores that he was under, 4 of them did not pass basic sanitation. And so we had a conversation with them. We said, this is what's going on. We felt it was so bad that we had to get rid of this person. And this is why we made that decision. And so then it's that showing that documentation is so critical. Because a lot of times we're like, you've had this happen. A manager will come in and go, we need to get rid of Julie. And you're like, why do we need to get rid of Julie? And they'll have a list of all the things Julie's done wrong.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, do you have documentation on that? And they'll be like, well, no, we're an employment at will company. Can't we get rid of them? And you're like, no. What are the takeaways? What do we need to do?
All right, fast and simple. Know your non-negotiables. In this case, it was food safety. Maybe it's harassment. Maybe it's violence. Maybe it's theft, but know your non-negotiables. Timestamp what you knew and what you did, what you learned, what you observed, what actions followed. Very easy way to timestamp is send an email. Send an email to your manager, send an email to HR, send an email to yourself. I know it sounds crazy, but it'll work. Do a consistency check before termination. Have we treated similar issues the same, as others? Document cleanly. Don't backfill. If paperwork appears only at the moment of termination, it's going to look staged.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
We talk about that in our HR classes, our employment law classes. I know you do a lot of employment law classes.
Yeah.
And folks, you got to catch John at some point teaching class. He's absolutely amazing. And coach your leaders. No age commentary, even casual, fresh energy comments. It's good to get fresh energy here. And you say that to all your younger people.
Yeah.
We did that. That can create unnecessary risk, but we've done a couple of stories like that. I remember the Google story, the grandpa, where the supervisor was calling the oldest guy in the Google headquarters, who was probably only 48 at the time. They're calling him grandpa. And then he loses his job, and all he remembers is how everyone called him grandpa.
Yeah, right. They won.
Yeah.
He won. I use that story all the time in my workshops. One of the things that I want to say here, because Chuck brought it up and I didn't really think about it, we have to train our managers. We have to train our managers around employment law. It's so important that they understand their ramifications. I was doing an employment law for managers course Monday this week. Oh my goodness, it was Monday this week. And I reiterate 3 times during that class, you can be personally held liable for your actions as a supervisor.
Mm-hmm.
So, right? And so training them, protect them, but training them to protect the company too. I love coming into organizations and I love doing manager training focused on employment laws, because what we do is we pull up your employee handbook, we go through it, not with a fine-tuned code, but we pull out the ones like, hey, this is why this is here. This is a reasonable basis. This is what you need to do to stay on the compliance side of the law. Whew, now I'm ranting. The message isn't don't terminate. That's a double negative. It's terminate when you need to, but do it like an expert, right? Do it, document.
You do it like an expert. You're not aiming for bulletproof. You're aiming for defensible.
I love that. So the headline for this story, you can be right and get sued, but the process helps you win.
That's
Document,
it.
document, document.
That's it. And if anyone listening has a situation where you've got legitimate reasons, but you're worried about a claim, hey, send us your question. We would love to cover it here on the HR Stories podcast, because odds are you're not the only one dealing with it. Again, HR Stories podcast, where there's a lesson in every story. We hope you gained a lesson here. Check out our book, The Ultimate Guide to HR, Checklist Edition, available on Amazon. And look at that, SHRM approves. You can get 3 recertification credits for it. Check out our Team of One Facebook page, HR Team of One. There's ways to even message us on the show notes below.
Yeah, just text,
send us a message,
here.
reach out, say hello, let us know you're listening, let us know what you like, what you don't like. And until next week, again, John, see you at the next HR Stories podcast storytelling campfire.
Campfire. I was going to say I'll see you in the lounge after this for a couple beers.
There we go.
Sounds whatever. If you want to wait until the campfire, we can wait, but I'll be in the lounge. I'm just saying.